Thank you for attending and taking a look at this presentation on the AI uses in presentations. I recently gave this talk in-house, and I thought it'd be worthwhile to share with more people. So, the agenda for today is we are going to look at artificial intelligence for text, AI uses in art and art generation, and then I probably won't have questions because it's a pre-recorded session. And so what is artificial intelligence? What is AI? AI, or artificial intelligence, is a growing set of tools and practice around using deep machine learning. So AI isn't really like future, the machines are taking over the world AI like in a Terminator or anything like that. But it's just a fancy word for deep machine learning. And it's deep machine learning and smart machines that perform tasks that generally were done by people, that require a higher level of intelligence. AI web assistants is the first thing we're going to talk about, kind of AI for text, if you will. So the ones that are kind of current, and this stuff is moving so fast, so this list may change, is ChatGPT, Bing, which incorporated ChatGPT, and Google Bard. So we'll talk about ChatGPT, Microsoft Bing, and Google Bard. So the way Bard works is you get a prompt. So let's take a look at doing Bard. So with Bard, what we're going to do here is we're going to enter a prompt and say, give me some ideas on some creative tech talk. So like one of the ways I often use things like Bard and GPT is when I got a little bit of a mental block. Recently I was doing some talks and I thought, I need some ideas. How might I get some ideas? So here I said, give me some ideas on a creative talk about hospice software. And Bard came back and gave me some topics. It said, we could do one called Hospice Software, a new way to care for the dying. We could focus on hospice software, changing the way we care for the dying, how it's used to communicate between patients and families. Talk about the power of hospice software, all the positive impacts that these software suites put forward into the world. We could talk about the future of hospice software. Where is it going? What are the new features coming in? How are we using it as we go forward? And then it gives me a bunch of pointers. These are not what I asked for, but useful tips like using personal stories and anecdotes, using humor to make it more engaging. These are all things that we could use to spice up our presentation. So these are great tips. And you notice there's the view other drafts in the upper right. So Bard, as it was thinking through its answers, had some other options it decided weren't good enough to send forward to us. ChatGPT is very similar. ChatGPT, we can go into here, it's OpenAI. And we're going to get the same question. Give me some ideas on a creative talk about hospice software. And so it's going to start putting forward some answers. And the thing about ChatGPT and Bing, because they're kind of based on the same system, it might write something and hit the delete button and go back. So it's kind of actively thinking. We got empowering compassionate care with technology, power of data into life care, building bridges across the hospice community. I mean, this is pretty good. This is talking about the providers and physicians. So it's kind of a useful one that covers a lot more things. Here we see one on the technology and future of hospice care, explore how hospice software is evolving and what the future might hold. These are all very useful ideas and probably some pretty good tech talks I could put forward. What about Bing? Let's go over to Bing. And the dates here, by the way, are not today's date. This is the date I ran the questions. So Bard, I'm going to ask the same thing. Give me some ideas on a creative talk about hospice software. The cool thing with Bing, is you have creative, balance, and precise. So with creative, you're allowing Bing to think through more obscure options. It can be more funny, more creative, but not always as accurate. Balance is right in the middle, and precise is going to be a very terse, very precise answer. I tend to lean in towards the more creative answers. So here its answer is how hospice software can empower compassionate care by streamlining workflows and ensuring compliance. Now you can see this is a case of machine learning not being perfect. The second topic there is how hospice software can save time and money by simplifying the IDG meeting preparation process. Now we can see it was sourced. It gives me a source from access.com. My guess is that had something to do with some software suite called IDG. I don't know what that is. So these aren't as useful. They're good one-liners and certainly ones I'd consider. The other thing you notice with Bing is that it does give you the sources. Where did it come from? So you can click on those to get more details. And Bing does want to engage with you, so it's a back and forth. So now we're going to look at the responses side by side. You can see the Bard on the left not only gave me like 3 topics with descriptions, but gave me some pointers. On the right, we saw with Bing, we had 5 total choices here instead of 3, but it didn't give me like a lot of details to it. And again, ChatGPT, you can see here we got a good 4 suggestions with full write-ups, empowering compassionate care technology. In this talk, you could discuss how hospice software can help providers deliver more compassionate and personalized care to patient families. You might focus on features like planning tools, med management, med admin, family communication. These are all good things. So ChatGPT just kept it to the things I asked for, which was give me some topic presentations. Now, let's talk about code. Not all of these I'm going to record the responses. You get the general idea how things respond. Bard comes back immediately after it's thought through things. ChatGPT and Bing write it as they think it. With the code, I asked for provide code written in Node.js to count the number of words in a file. Pretty straightforward request. We're going to use JavaScript to count files. Here we can see we're bringing in the file system object. This one is handling arguments, so it lets me pass the file name in. And you can see I do the word length and then I write it out to the log. And it even tells me how I could test it. So a pretty full answer to the question. ChatGPT, very similar. This one does the same requiring of the file system library. But here we see it hard-coded file.txt and then wrote out the words. And it kind of talks through how this code works, but very similar. I'm going to point out something. Notice how in the middle it did a split on just a space. It's going to count words by just a space. Moving into Bing, Bing's a little tighter, requires the file system object. Just like ChatGPT, it said file.txt. But notice, subtle difference, right? These are how these machine learnings are a little different. We can see that it's split on /s+. So this would handle tabs, spaces, any space-like character, any non-alphanumeric character would trigger on the split. So this one technically is a little bit better than the ChatGPT model. And notice, that's the other thing we get with this code. None of these told me how to install Node.js, told me how to set up the package JSON. There's an assumed level of knowledge going into this that the developer who's asking for this knows the basics. This is just the code. And here again, I'm going to ask another one. One of the languages I've always struggled with is Clojure. It's basically Lisp written on top of Java. Everything's recursive. And so in my past experience, when I'd get an assignment that involved Clojure, it might take me a week to write the code, but I can always read the Clojure. I mean, it's easy to read. It's just my brain anyway. It's harder to write recursively. So here we ask for a code to be written in Clojure to count the number of words in a file. Same task as Node.js. And what I thought was very interesting, looking at left is Bing, left is Bard, middle right is ChatGPT, and the bottom right is Bing. They answered the question all very differently. So we could see that when we looked at Google, it gave me the definition of count words. It used some sort of slurp to bring it in, a Clojure string split on /s, and then counted the words of the text, right? So it defined a function, called the function, and used a slurp to pull back the response of the split and trim. On the middle upper, when we look at ChatGPT, we imported a Java library of the buffer reader and the file reader, right? Because Clojure is built on top of Java. Here we also created a definition, a function called count words. And from there we open the reader, right? It's completely different. The other one is anonymous function. This one actually does with open reader, buffer reader. Talks about reading the file in. And then with the line sequence reader, it reads each line and does a map cat split on spaces. And then puts it back out. And then on the bottom right, we see similar to before, we do the require Clojure Java as I/O. We're bringing in the I/O library. But this one we do some sort of a reader of the text file, and I don't know what RDR stands for. And we have the contents against slurp, but this one we split on /s+. So three answers, three different AIs. I'm not good enough at Clojure to tell you how well they would do the work, though I do think the /S plus is better than just space. But here you go, AI answering it in different ways. Let's talk about content. The other thing you can do is do a company bio. So my primary employer is WellSky, and one of the things I asked for is write a company bio. I figure I work there. I probably could answer whether or not this is accurate. So here I asked Bing, write a company bio for WellSky Incorporated. It's nice and terse, fairly accurate. WellSky used to be called Medaware Inc. as a technology company provider for the healthcare sectors. We have inpatient, outpatient, so any sort of post-acute care is what we do. We do med admin, home care. I don't know if we do home infusion reimbursement or that's just a feature of our home health product. And WellSky is leading the movement of intelligent coordinated care worldwide. I bet you that is what our mission statement is. And again, overall, I'd say this is a pretty short but accurate answer. I then asked Bard the same question. Write a company bio for WellSky. And here it answered it much more detailed. But this is where you can't trust AI just as it stands, right? So one of the things it said is WellSky was founded in 1979 as Medaware Inc. Systems. Best I can tell in our company records, we existed in 1980, not 1979. It is true that we were acquired by TPG Capital, but that's just one out of many owners of the company. We are based in Overland Park, Kansas. That is accurate, but not the Netherlands or the United Kingdom. Those were former businesses that over the years were divested. We focus mostly on Canada and U.S., so that would be an inaccurate statement. Now, I don't know if we're in 20,000 client sites, possibly. I don't know the specifics, but this is where you have to take caution in what these AIs come back with. They've called some information over probably multiple sources on the internet. Some are old, some are current, and that's why you always have to review it. It's not entirely accurate. When we asked ChatGPT, we got a similar answer, but different. 30 years of experience. It's a little bit better, a little more vague, and definitely within the realm. Again, WellSky has deep complexities. And overall, this is accurate. I'm not sure that we have consulting services per se, but we do have training and support services. So these are some of the things you just got to double check as you get back those answers. So I thought I'd have some fun. I'm going to ask a question about a fictitious corporation, the Wayland Utility Corp that builds better worlds. If you've seen any of the Alien series, you'd recognize Wayland Utility. And so I asked first Bard to write me a company bio for Wayland Utility. And here it says, Wayland Utility is a fictional corporation Alien franchise. But then it goes on, and this is where I love Bard. It wrote a very good company bio. The company is involved in a wide range of industries, including robotics, space exploration, weapons manufacturing, known for ruthless business practices. Probably they wouldn't write that in their company bio. Founded in 1979 by Peter Wayland and Charles Bishop Wayland. I mean, I believe that's accurate. And then it just has success. It's great, Whereas ChatGPT said, I'm sorry, I can't fulfill this request as it's a fictional company. And it would be not right. And I've had ChatGPT yell at me before when I asked for it to fictionally think through 100 duck-sized horses or one horse-sized duck in a fight, and it says you shouldn't make animals fight, So ChatGPT has got all these guardrails. And then we can look at the one from Bing, and it did say it's a movie franchise, but kind of focused. It's a little bit shorter in the bio, but it is a good one. So let's talk about AI assistance for art. We talked about the talking. So now let's talk about the AI assistance for art. We're going to look at Midjourney, DALL-E 2, Stable Diffusion, and since I initially gave this talk, we're even going to touch on Bing. So Midjourney, here we can see Midjourney. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pop into the prompt. And the way Midjourney works is it's all through Discord. And in the Midjourney system, we're going to do Imagine Prompt. And we're going to talk through a particular image. Lately, I've been having kind of fun with cinematic stills in the style of different filmmakers, and we're going to actually cover some of those examples in a bit. So here I'm going to say cinematic still. We're going to stick with Terry Gilliam because Terry Gilliam does some pretty wild movies. You know, the director of Brazil. We're going to say a man deep at work on software. We're going to try to think about software and hospice care and home health, kind of working on this idea, right? So we're going to say a man deep at work on software, beds and people in hospice care. We have some light in windows. You know, I'll stick with majestic lighting. I think that kind of brings in a very pretty picture. And then I'm going to say ultra wide angle. And now these are more ChatGPT specifics. 4K and an aspect ratio of 2:1, which is kind of a cinematic aspect ratio. It can't do 16:9, but it can do 2:1, which is close enough for wide angle. So I'm going to speed this up. This definitely can take a while, you know, upwards of 5 minutes, depending on when you're hitting Midjourney. But as we come back, it's going to start to render it. We can see it rendering in paint. So again, a reminder, these recordings I sped up a bit so he didn't have to wait so long. I could definitely see some good stuff here, but it looks more to me like people in beds. We can look at some of these thumbnails. They're pretty good. They're not fully rendered, but we usually get back 4 choices. So by default, it'll come back with 4 ideas from our prompt. I definitely get hospice care out of this. I'm not sure that I get computer programmer. I'm not seeing that in there. So let's tweak it a little bit, okay? We're gonna still stick with the cinematic still and the film by part. But what I'm gonna do instead is I'm gonna kind of put a little heft on the software stuff. So instead of saying a man deep at work on software, which is not as clear, I'm gonna say a computer programmer working on software, right? And something that you can do in Midjourney v5 is weight some words. That software is :1, which means give it a little more weight than maybe some of the other words in here. And hospice, I'm also going to say that word has some weight. So software and hospice have more weight than the others. And by the way, this is any arbitrary scale. So you could say 100, and then some things are 5. If you're not doing anything else, I tend to use just :1 to indicate it. And the rest is pretty much the same. Ultra wide angle, aspect ratio 2:1. And so now it's going to come back and bring in a little bit more of those tweaks that I wanted from the prompt. So we can take a look at these. And, you know, I'm not seeing the tech. I see off to the right a computer there. This one, again, not seeing the tech part. I get hospice care, but the guy had 3 hands. I don't know if you caught that there. I get hospice care in a laptop. I think I could work with that one. And this one, we don't have the tech, but we have somebody reading. So that third one is definitely what I'm interested in. So the V3 means on the third panel, again, the way it works is upper left, upper right, lower left, lower right. On that third panel, riff on it, do versions of it. So now it's taken that one and done a few versions. What you're going to notice is the lamp is different. You can see already the lamp, some is anchored in the wall, and some is just floating. The computer is a little different. What maybe is on the screen is a little different. The arrangement on the table is a little different. Subtle differences to the original image. And here we can see the one I like the best so far. And when I do a full render, what we can see here is the upscaled full render of that image. We have a person in the background, person in the foreground. We definitely get kind of elder care, and we get some tech aspect to it. Not a lot of tech, and you have to forgive things, right? If you give close scrutiny, you're going to notice, why would the guy have 2 different coffee cup sizes? The lampshade in the background seems to be missing a pole or a lamp. We see a lamp that's lighting up his hands, which is great, but that lamp is just floating in the ether, right? I mean, it's anchored to nothing. And so if you really give some close attention, you're going to notice clues that this was an AI piece of art, you know, and very often people look to hands and people look to these details to see that. Now let's move over to Stable Diffusion. Stable Diffusion is something that's rendered in the world, but you can use Stable Diffusion Web to play with Stable Diffusion. We're going to ask the same question. I'm going to take out though those parts of the question that were specific to Midjourney. So I'm not going to say 4K or AR, the aspect ratio, because with Stable Diffusion, that really wouldn't have any bearing on anything. And so here I write up the query: beds and people in hospice care, majestic lighting, ultra wide angle. I don't know if Stable Diffusion cues off of all these same words. Now, I do want to point out with this Stable Diffusion, I did not speed this video up. This is how long it took to run. Now, I was running it during the off hours, so it was a little quicker, but Stable Diffusion, in my experience, tends to work more like photographs, less like 3D renders. And you can get some wild answers. There's no way around it. You can get some weird answers. I mean, I don't know what that is. Again, that is really strange. But this one I kind of get. If I was going in that fourth one for, basically, and this is the final image, computers and hospice care, it works, but the face is all weird. The hands are not really there, and the tech is definitely 70s retro. So I'm not sure if I would really use this in a presentation, but you kind of get how Stable Diffusion came up with tech and people in hospital beds. Let's go to DALL-E 2. And so DALL-E 2 here, we can go ahead and write the same prompt. We'll say a cinematic still. And again, it's all the same things I typed before, without the aspect ratio and the 4K, because that's really just a Midjourney specific usage. And so beds and people in hospice care, majestic lighting. Let's see what we come back with. And this one I also sped up a little bit, though it's definitely fairly fast. It's not too bad at all. So we can see what it comes back with. And I see some answers. But some of these are kind of good. I like that one, but I'm not in love with it because the face is really wacky. So I'm going to do some variations on this one. So it's rendering out some variations. And on the left, we see the original, but now we see a few choices. We can notice the monitor is different. The face is slightly different. But I might argue that, that one there, I could actually use. I mean, if it was just in the background of art, and we can see that final image, you could have that in the background of a presentation. You would get the idea of a hospital and hospital care and a patient. Again, not as the full feature main thing, but as a background image. You could totally use this in a presentation. So Bing is rolling out actively as we speak. It didn't happen to me yesterday, but it happened to me today, that I have access to Bing Cinematic Stills. So what we're going to see here is I asked the same question, and it rendered pretty fast. And I really get the Terry Gilliam here. I know behind the scenes it's using the DALL-E engine, but as powered by Microsoft. I mean, this feels very much like a Terry Gilliam film in every way. Now, I don't have the ability to control the aspect ratio, but I gotta say, I really love this last image. And if we want to kind of use that as the main, you have that theater, with the vaulted ceiling and the lighting and the hospital beds, yet you have kind of the modern healthcare worker working away at a screen. I felt probably more than any other of the engines, the brief of saying, give me a Terry Gilliam hospice software scene, Bing really did the best job, right? I mean, that fits the bill entirely. So let's go on to diagrams. I just wanted to bring this up because I have used these engines to create some diagrams, but they always screw up words. It's not really English. It looks more like something that you'd get in Holland or whatnot. It's gobbledygook there. It's English-like. And so you can see that DALL-E did some basic flows. You can recognize like an ERD and a DFD in there. Stable Diffusion had nice mapping and charts. Maybe in a distance or very blurred I could use them, but they're not legible. Midjourney gave me a lot of fun choices in chart styles. And if I had the desire to kind of bring it into GIMP or Photoshop and replace words, I could do it, but I'd probably be better suited to find a graphing tool out there to do it fresh. So we can see here, you can use it for charts. I wouldn't recommend it. Let's talk about faces. We already covered, we looked at the past examples that these systems do a poor job of faces and hands. But there's choices. So there used to be a website called thispersondoesnotexist.com that NVIDIA hosted that they stopped supporting, but somebody kept it going with this dash person dash does dash not dash exist. So there is a site that still runs it, just they added dashes to the name. So here I've asked for somebody who's female in the 26 to 35 range of Indian heritage. That image you see there is not a real person. That was created by AI. That just made a face. That person does not exist, okay? I want to make that really clear. Next, I said up the age, 35 to 50. And again, same ethnicity, same gender. We see somebody who's more in the 35 to 50 range. Lastly, I went with 50 plus years old. And that does look like an older professional Indian woman. Now I have a face, right? Let me go run with this, okay? I have a face of a generated person. That person does not exist, okay? I can now go back to Midjourney and upload it. So what I'll do is I will hit the plus button and I'll upload a file. I will have downloaded that random face generator, right? I upload the file. Then when it's loaded, I click the button, I open a browser, and I get the URL. So up top, I'm grabbing that URL real quick where it hosted it, because I need it hosted on a web URL to do this image thing. I'm now going to do that imagine prompt, only this time I'm going to paste in the image, okay? And I'm going to give it a prompt. I want to use this face, but I'm going to make this person do something interesting, okay? So they're going to be working in a hospital. I want maybe not the best lighting, so maybe clipboard and fluorescent lighting, patients, you know, think hospital setting. That's what I'm going off of for this image. But I've given it the prompting of a face, okay? Shadows, depth of field, so a nice ratcheted image, you know, with an f-stop. And it's going to crank. Now, I sped this up. When you prompt with an image like this does take a while. I think this in total took about 8 minutes to get all the way through. But here now I'm seeing some images, okay? And it took that made up person's face as a basis. And I kind of like the first and the fourth, right? The fourth has a weird reflection, but that first one, that's actually pretty good. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say upscale it. So now it's going to run it through the upscaler, which I didn't show you before. I skipped that part. And it starts to upscale it. It's fairly fast, not as fast as I showed here. But now what we can do is we can go ahead and look at this image as generated with that artificial face that we made. And now I actually have a piece of art I could use, right? I'd probably airbrush out the second face in there because it's strange. I don't know why we have somebody looking over her shoulder. But if you airbrushed out that second face, this could definitely be the front slide of something about hospital care. And I don't have to worry about offending an actor or getting the rights to an actor's face or anything like that. Here we have an actor that is created from an AI, right? It's not a real person. So this is one of those fantastic pro tips is you can use one tool to generate an image, kind of what you want, and then feed it into an AI system like Midjourney to get you the rest of the way there. Let's talk about illustrations. So here I'm thinking about a hospice presentation, right? So I say a hospice software presentation, introduction graphic, and I want it kind of zany and bright. So I said bright in the style of Mad Magazine, illustrations, 4K, and I definitely see that kind of Mad Magazine, especially in the bottom right there. But I'm going to click that little refresh button, that little circle, to say, give me more. So I ask for more. You know, that's good. Now, I don't think I want to do a skeleton head in the bottom left. That would give the wrong impression. Maybe if I'm doing a Day of the Dead presentation, that would work. But otherwise, you would give the wrong signals doing hospice software with dead people. This one's looking pretty good. I like the upper left and lower left, though the lower left looks a little sad. And one more. Again, I could probably use that one in the bottom right. So let's say that we pick one, and I'm going back to that third one. And I said upscale that guy. So I upscaled the one on the upper left to this image. And we can see the computer, it's messed up. This doctor, I think, fits the bill for a doctor. You can see how the upscaling works. If you look in the upper left, the clock is all messed up with just dots and dashes. In our fully rendered one, while it's not a perfect clock, it's at least better as far as a clock face goes. And if people aren't noticing that our particular doctor has 12 total fingers, we could totally go with it, right? Other than the 12-finger doc, this is a good image. So next, I'm going to say I'd like to use this, right? I want consistent art. I'd like to kind of do a few slides and not have it all new people. What I can now do is I can save that image. I'm going to open it in browser. Sorry, I don't need to save it. I just need to capture the image URL. So I'll grab that image URL. And then what I'm going to do is go back into Midjourney. And I'm going to use that in a prompt. Okay. So imagine prompt, and I'm going to paste the image. Now, I first started typing just the difference. So I wanted to say maybe walking out the door. But then I realized to do this just the right way, I need to reuse the same text I had before. The other thing is you can see the seed. See that seed number? That's very important. That's going to give us the same frame of reference that Midjourney used the first time. And now I realize my mistake. I'm going to grab that exact text. I'm going to bring that exact text in. Only now I'm going to say walking out the door to office. Okay, so I've given it the seed image, the seed number, and some new text. Again, this took a while. Whenever you feed images, it takes a while. But now it's rendering out some choices. And what you're going to notice is, I would argue the upper left and the lower right definitely look like that same doctor, you know? And if we finish that out, I upscaled the one in the upper left. Other than some of the color correction, this fits, right? It's our 6-fingered doc from before, and he's heading out of the office for his next appointment. Yes, the shirt has changed, and the tie is a little bit of a different color, but by and large, the jacket is the same. And I think if we were doing a multi-slide presentation, we could make this work. This would be good enough for non-professional illustrations, but we're using consistent characters and we're having fun with it. And so this is one of the many ways you can do consistent characters in tools like Midjourney. Another one I wanted to play with, I told you I'd come back to this, is that cinematic still. I've been just really enjoying this. So here you can see in the upper right, I asked for a cinematic still, a film by Alfred Hitchcock. I didn't give it an angle because I wanted to let Midjourney fill in the blanks, because Alfred Hitchcock always had fun angles to his shots. And the leading actor is burning cash. I was working on a presentation at the time that involved improving your spend in cloud costs. And so I did that, and you could definitely see burning of money. I don't think I'd use it in a presentation, but I thought, boy, that does look like a Hitchcock film of somebody burning money. We can then see a cinematic still, a film by Wes Anderson, a businesswoman served a plate of pirate coins at an office, wide angle style of drama. Now, the reason I said pirate coins is I did start that one by burning cash, burning money, but it would put in really strange looking money. It didn't look like US or Canadian or European currency. It looked like weird paper stuff. By tweaking the words to say pirate coins, you definitely get the idea of money. So sometimes when you're writing your prompt, you need to just kind of tweak it to make it get back the picture you're trying to imbue. And I was trying to show money, and I think this shows money, right? Let's continue with that theme in the upper right now. I said Same thing, cinematic still, but this time a film by Steven Spielberg with pirate coins. And you can definitely see the Spielberg style in there. You get a different type of person, different angles, but you could see that in an Indiana Jones or a classic Spielberg shot. It definitely works for the image. And I did a different millimeter there. I did 10 millimeter lens. Let's talk about abstract in Midjourney. When we look at abstract art in Midjourney, we can give it some, we don't need to put as much in there. So here I said infinity 5. That was the most important thing. I was doing an article on a company whose logo was an infinity loop, but I didn't really want to use their logo exact as it was. I wanted to generate a more creative, artistic view of that infinity logo. So I said infinity blue 5, and I gave it blue of 2. I didn't care as much about the blueness of it. And I said realistic, that way it kind of render 3D, and depth of field. And I gave it an aspect ratio of 4:3. And we can see, doing 2 different seeds here, 2 different renders, a very varied sense of it, but you definitely get that infinity, right? You get that reflective infinity logo being used here in the art. Another one is doing some photorealism. This is one out of, I had worked this particular picture several times over to get really what I wanted. But here you can see a stack of phone books, card catalogs, index cards, directories, right? I was giving it a bunch of words to key off of. I wanted 4K. I wanted depth of field. I wanted 35, perfect lighting and the 35 millimeter lens. And here we get a nice picture of what could be old Kodak prints or card catalogs, but you get that gritty feel of an old stack of books or indexes, which is what I was going. It was a write-up on DNS topics, but I thought this would be a good piece of art for that topic to get at it. You can feed your own self. So there's an image I have of me that's in a Pixar style, which I won't I won't show you right now. But here I uploaded a relatively current picture of myself. And then I started to just tweak on it. So I said, an angry old man, right, waving his hands. And we definitely get that in the bottom right. I said a grizzled cowboy, stormy background, right? And I don't get the background per se. And then the pictures on the left, the cowboy hat merges with my head in a weird way. But I might use the one that's in the bottom right. That could work. And then I had an old weathered writer. I was doing like an old writing piece. And again, I think that accurately looks like how I might be in maybe 10, 20 years, maybe longer. But you can see how you can feed an image and get results. I won't show it, but you can feed 2 images, and I've merged people before to make rather interesting results. Next, I'm going to kind of show you some examples of my family, all right? So on the upper right, we see one of my daughters. And here she asked for a superhero character. When I fed it that superhero image, we definitely got Incredibles. It's a good image, but it was more kid animated. So then I asked for it to be superhero. The problem I got with that superhero action pose is it did a gender bender, and it made my daughter into a guy with a beard. So I added the word feminine to make it clear we're looking for kind of a female superhero, lest it would get confused on that. The one in the middle, I brought in my father-in-law, and I just wanted to convert it to a Pixar character. I will say he did not find that picture as funny as the rest of us did, but I do think you get kind of that Pixar version of a person, and you can have fun with that. You can do animated styles, lots of different magazines, and the Stylist in City is one I see a lot, but you can have fun with those prompts and feeding it real images that you have. So let's talk about what these things cost. So Midjourney had a free tier, which it ended a little over a week ago. So it has a basic tier of like $10 a month. That's actually what I pay for today. And again, if you pay for it by a year, like that plan is $8 a month if you pay for it annually. So these all have discounts if you pay for an annual plan. With Dolly, you get 10 runs a month, but it didn't ask me to log in, so I'm not sure how it knows who I am. And then if you want to pay for more, it's $15 for another 115 runs. Not like monthly, it's just credits. And Stable Diffusion is trained on an AI. You can use the web version there for free. There's no limit. I will say out of all of these, Stable Diffusion is the one you can download and set up to run yourself. So you can train it on your own catalog and run it on your own hardware. So people do have fun playing with Stable Diffusion. I'm going to make a note here. All of these have guardrails in place for adult content or extra violent content, and they will catch it. And if you ask for things to be bloody or anything that's of a graphic or nude nature, they keep it very PG. So anything like that, you're not going to get through these AIs as they stand unless you self-host. So just heads up, and I think some of them will kick you off. So I don't even try it. I don't want to lose my access. I enjoy the Midjourney thing. So, you know, that's come up sometimes when I've done some art around hospitals and you want, you know, a surgery or blood involved, and blood is a triggered image that it doesn't like, but you could say red liquid, you know, you can talk around it. So if you're trying to kind of create a grittier image, you sometimes have to be creative in your words. I'm going to give you a quick timeline here. Dolly came out in January 5th, 2021. Dolly 2 in April of 22, and then things just took off. Then we got Midjourney coming out in July 2022. And then we got Stable Diffusion in August 22nd. And then Bing Art came out in 2023. I mean, that wasn't out earlier this week, and now is. So that's just as fast. So in summary, kind of to wrap up, AI can help generate ideas, flesh out code samples, write basic blog and content. And with AI art generation, we can create great illustrations we can use, as well as photographic content for our system. However, this is my big caveat. It requires massaging. This isn't going to replace us. I get people that I work with that get, oh, the AIs will replace our jobs. They're not, because it's not perfect. It's a better version of a search. It's just a tool. And so with that said, I encourage you to use AI to speed up your content creation project, to get past some writer's block, and maybe create some basic art for your blog or your presentation. It can spice up your presentation rather than clip art. So thank you. I appreciate it.